Hi, welcome to Storytime at Sweetwater County Library. I'm Miss Tiffany, and today we're going to read stories about St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day is one of my favorite holidays because it has rainbows and pots of gold and leprechaun and something called the Blarney Stone. Did you know that in Ireland there's a castle where they have the Blarney Stone? And it's tradition to go and lay on your back and they stretch you out under the Blarney Stone and you kiss it for good luck. So today I'm going to read you a story called Tim O'Toole and the Wee Folk. And this is about a man in Ireland who happens to meet the little leprechauns. Tim O'Toole and the Wee Folk, an Irish tale told and illustrated by Gerald McDermott. In a little cottage on a little hill, at the end of a little lane in Donegal, lived Tim O'Toole and his wife Kathleen. Tim and Kate were so poor they had not a penny or a potato between them. Their children ate porridge for supper. Even the mice were thin from want of food, and the cat wouldn't bother with chasing the creatures. Their neighbors, who were poor enough themselves, avoided Tim, for they thought he would bring them bad luck. Things went from bad to worse until one day there was not a crumb or a drop left in the house. "Tim O'Toole," said Kate, "I can stand no more of being poor, and you sitting around bemoaning your fate. You must go out to find work like a decent man and take us out of this poverty." Kathleen kept after him, and next morning Tim set out to see if he could earn some wages. Tim O'Toole traveled the length of the country, knocking at every door, inquiring at every farm, trying to eke out a few coppers for a day's work. But there was no work to be had. Finally, when Tim was tired and hungry and could walk no further, he stopped and lay down to rest in the cool green clover at the side of the road. No sooner had he stretched out than he heard the faint sound of merry piping and lilting voices raised in song and laughter. The strange music was coming from a little hollow in the side of the hill. Tim crept up to the hollow and peered over the edge. There below him was a troop of the Wee Folk, laughing and singing and carrying on. Well, Tim knew for sure his luck has changed, for it is well known that whoever spies the Wee Folk in the light of day can demand their treasure. Suddenly the music stopped. The little merrymakers were astonished when they looked up and saw Tim peering down at them. "Hand over your gold," bellowed Tim, trying to be fierce, "and you'll come to no harm." "Have mercy on us, Tim O'Toole," begged the leader of the little people. There was a smile on his lips, and he tried not to laugh. "You've caught us for fair, so we'll see that you're richly rewarded." Then there was a hurrying and scurrying in the hollow below, and soon the Wee Folks handed up a little gray goose. "Here you are, Tim, a goose that lays golden eggs. Go home straight away, tell not a soul, and you and your Kate shall never want for more." Tim started for home, carrying the goose and feeling very pleased with himself. Soon darkness overcame him, and he stopped at a farmhouse to ask if he could stay the night. The couple who owned the farm, the McGoons, let him in and sat him down by the fire. Tim began to boast of his great good fortune and the little gray goose that lays golden eggs. That night, while Tim was asleep in the loft, the McGoons decided they could use just such a goose as this. Quietly, they exchanged it for their own. Tim was none the wiser for it, and in the morning went happily homeward, carrying the goose he thought would bring him great wealth. When he got home, he put the bird upon the table. "Is that all you've to show for being gone these 3 days?" asked Kathleen. "But, darling, this is no ordinary goose," said Tim. "This one lays golden eggs." Well, the short of it is, they waited a long, long time, and as you might guess, the goose did no such thing. "They've cheated me," howled Tim, and he marched off in a terrible temper to give the little people what for. When he finally reached their hiding place, he was still angry. "Golden eggs, is it?" cried Tim to the wee folks. "That goose you gave me laid no eggs at all." "This is curious indeed," said their startled leader. Then the little man wrinkled his nose and gave a sly smile. "Tim, but wait a moment and we'll make good your reward." There was a hurrying and scurrying in the hollow below. A moment later, the wee folks brought forth a fine linen tablecloth and spread it in front of Tim. In the wink of an eye, it was covered with bounteous food and drink, the likes of which he had never seen before. "Take this tablecloth home straight away, Tim O'Toole, and tell not a soul," cautioned the leader of the little ones. "Then you and your darling Kate shall never want for more." Tim walked merrily toward home until darkness came on him. Again he stayed the night with the Magoons and boasted to them of his newfound fortune. The Magoons thought it good fortune indeed. While Tim slept, they slipped away the magic tablecloth and exchanged it for an ordinary one from their very own cupboard. Tim was none the wiser for it when he reached home the next day. "Kathleen, my darling," he said, "we'll never go hungry again." With a flourish, he spread the cloth upon the table. Well, of course, it was empty and produced not a drop or a crumb. Kathleen laughed, and Tim went into a rage. "The little heathens," he shouted. In a flash, Tim was out the door and on the road again. "Stand fast," Tim called down into the little hollow where the wee folk were gathered. "'Tis pleased you are not, Tim O'Toole," said the leader. Could it be that the tablecloth was empty? All the wee folk were grinning. "Indeed it was, you scoundrel," answered Tim. The wee ones began to chuckle. "And did you go direct home as we told you?" Tim O'Toole admitted he had twice stayed the night at the Magoons. When they heard this, the little people burst into laughter. "You were a fool to trust the likes of the Magoons," said the leader. "But never mind, Tim. We've just the thing for you." The little people brought up a strange green hat and gave it to Tim. They instructed him to boast of his magic to the Magoons and to leave the hat where they could find it. "Then we shall see what we shall see," said the wee one. A third time Tim tarried at the Magoons. He proudly displayed the magic hat the wee folk had given him. Then he crawled up into the loft and pretended to sleep. He had but laid his head upon the straw when he heard the Magoon stir below. "I wonder what sort of magic it is," said Magoon to his wife. Cautiously, he tipped over the hat. Out of the hat jumped 10 tiny men. Each had a little blackthorn club and began to beat the Magoons about the shins and ankles. The couple whooped and hollered and danced around the room trying to escape the blows of the wee folk. Lay off, begged Magoon. "Tell your henchmen to have mercy, O'Toole." "Give me my linen tablecloth and my little gray goose, and I'll leave you in peace," said Tim, laughing all the while. McGoons gave back what they had taken. Tim put on his hat, tucked the little gray goose under one arm, and draped the tablecloth over the other arm, and headed for home. When Tim arrived, he spread the tablecloth before Kathleen and set down the goose in the middle of it. The bird honked and laid a golden egg. Then the most delectable edibles and drinkables began magically to appear on the table. "Kathleen, my darling," said Tim, "we are happy at last." Or so Tim thought. Folks from all parts soon heard of the O'Toole's good fortune and crowded in to see the wondrous goose. Their little cottage filled up with neighbors until there was no place left to sit or to stand. Everyone helped themselves to the never-ending supply of edibles and drinkables. "I never knew we had so many friends," said Tim. But I think 'tis time the party was at an end. He tipped his hat, and out jumped 10 tiny men with blackthorn cubs. They beat the shins and ankles of the noisy crowd, chased them out of the house, and pursued them down the hill. After that, the cottage was quiet once again. Tim O'Toole and his family were quite comfortable, you might say. They spent many hours in front of the hearth, sipping hot tea and chatting and thinking kind thoughts of the wee folk. For all I know, Tim and Kate are there still, in a little cottage, on a little hill, at the end of a little lane in Donegal. Another fun book about leprechauns is Too Many Leprechauns. What does happen when we get too many leprechauns? I don't know. But maybe they create a pot of gold. Too Many Leprechauns, or How That Pot of Gold Got to the End of the Rainbow, by Stephen Krensky. Illustrated by Dan Andreasen. Finn O'Finnigan looked like a rogue and walked like a rascal, so it was widely thought that he was at least one or the other, and his shadow, which followed him closely and knew all of his secrets, might have said he was both. But when Finn returned home to Dingle after a year in Dublin, he was only looking to rest his feet and grow fat on his mother's soda bread. The village looked much as he had left it, the stone walls a bit wobbly, the houses leaning into the wind, and yet something was clearly amiss. At his own house, Finn was surprised to find his mother cleaning up broken dishes with a broom. Mrs. O'Finnigan let out a great yawn. "Oh, so here you are, Finn, and it would be glorious to see if only I could keep my eyes open. But the leprechauns are everywhere, making fairy shoes with that infernal tapping, and none of us have slept in weeks." At that moment, Finn heard a steady tap, tap, tap in the yard. He stepped outside to investigate. In the garden, a leprechaun named Daub was hard at work. Tap, 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 tap. "Good day," said Finn. Daub scowled at him. "It's a busy day, to be sure. The more shoes I make for the fairies, the more gold I get. And nothing is more important than gold." Now, Finn had some experience with leprechauns, and he chose his words carefully. "A wise outlook. If I'm not mistaken, though, you may have missed a stitch." Daub dropped his hammer. "Missed a stitch?" He wagged a finger at Finn. "Fancy yourself an expert, do you? Come with me." Daub led the way to a second leprechaun named Waddle. He, too, was making shoes, a dainty pair with silk flowers lining the sides. "What say you to these?" asked Dob. "Has Waddle missed a stitch too?" Finn rubbed his chin. "Well, his shoes are fine, assuming they'll only be worn in the dark." "In the dark!" cried Waddle. "Where no one could see them," Finn explained. Both leprechauns turned a deep shade of red. The next day, Dob dragged Finn to 3 more leprechauns, and to 4 more the day after that. By week's end, Finn had seen shoes of every size and style, and for each fault, flaw, or defect that he mentioned, the angrier the leprechauns became. "Leprechauns are sensitive," Finn observed to his mother. "And greedy too," she added, "but don't put my heart crossways by taking too many chances." There was a knock at the door from Dob. "You're just in time for tea," said Finn. Dob snorted. "It's not tea I'm after, it's you. Follow me." Dob led the way to a field where all of the leprechauns stood waiting. As Finn approached, they moved back slowly to reveal a great pile of gold. "We hardly could have gained all of this," said Dob, "if our shoes were not the finest of their kind." "Impressive," said Finn. He could see that the leprechauns loved their gold dearly, so dearly that it just might be their undoing. "Perhaps," Finn went on, "if I saw all your shoes together, I might change my mind." Yes, yes, the leprechauns agreed. They were sure that would make all the difference. "Tomorrow morning we will bring the shoes to the village square," they promised. Finn nodded. "I'll be counting on it," he said. A gray dawn greeted the leprechauns as they arrived with their carts, barrows, sacks, and bundles. The shoes were unpacked and laid out with care. Soon everything was ready, but while the leprechauns were there and the shoes were there, Finn was not. The leprechauns waited and waited. The sky cleared before Finn finally appeared. "Sorry I'm late," he said, although he didn't sound sorry at all. Finn marched up and down the street. At some shoes he stopped to point in astonishment. "Ah, oh." At others he simply clapped in delight. "A very impressive sight," he said finally. "I can see why you were proud of your treasure." Dob frowned. "Were proud?" he repeated. "Are we not still proud of our gold?" "Well, you could be," said Finn, "if your gold hadn't suddenly disappeared." The leprechauns turned pale. "Disappeared?" Such a thing was beyond imagining. Still, it might be best to make sure. Empty. They found the field empty. "It must be here somewhere," Dob insisted. The leprechauns looked everywhere, behind hedges, under rocks, even in the trees. All night and into the dawn they searched through Dingle, their lanterns flickering like fireflies in the darkness. But it did them no good. All of their fairy gold, every last coin and nugget, was gone. In the morning, when the mist still lay heavy on the air, the leprechauns came pounding on Finn's door. "What have you done with our gold?" Dob demanded. Finn shrugged. "All is not lost, only safely tucked away. I'll make you a bargain. If you promise to leave Dingle and never trouble us again, I'll return your gold." It pained the leprechauns to admit defeat, but not as much as it would have hurt them to lose their gold forever. Reluctantly, they agreed to his terms. "Then we'd best be moving along," said Finn, looking up at the clearing sky. He led them back to the empty field. At that moment, the sun came out and a rainbow fell from the sky. And there, where the rainbow met the grass, a great pile of gold suddenly appeared. The leprechauns stamped their feet. "You moved our gold to the end of a rainbow, and when the rainbow vanished, so did our gold." "Indeed," said Finn, "for it is fairy gold, as you told me, and fairies often use rainbows to move their gold about." "You tricked us," said Dob. Finn held up a hand. "The rainbow is back, and so is your treasure. Take it in peace while the rainbow holds, and remember our bargain." Finn went home to his mother, who, after a good night's sleep, baked him more loaves of soda bread than even he could eat. As for the leprechauns, they were heard grumbling at times about how Finn had outwitted them, yet they were secretly pleased as well, for if the truth be told, they've kept their gold at the end of the rainbow ever since. The end. This book is a really fun adventure with the gingerbread man and the leprechaun. And the leprechaun is loose in school. Oh, the shenanigans. Gingerbread Man and the Leprechaun, Loose at School, by Laura Murray, illustrated by Mike Lowry. One Monday in March, the mischief began with a hee from a wee little man. We heard the sly laugh as he raced down the hall. Then he paused by our door with a wink and a call. "Fo fiddly fee, you can't catch me, for I'm on a leprechaun mess-making spree. I'm crafty and keen, I'm nimble and quick. I love to make mischief or play a good trick." We rushed to the hall. He was nowhere in sight, but some tiny green shamrocks trailed off to the right. It seems that our school has an unwanted guest, a magical, mischievous leprechaun pest. We quietly tiptoed our way down the hall, then spied a small message taped up on the wall. "The woodwinds, the strings, percussion and brass are turned topsy-turvy, awaiting your class." "Music?" I whispered. "The band room's this way." But when we arrived, we all stared in dismay. The sheets were all scattered, the tubas were tipped, the trumpets, violas, and flutes were all flipped. And there, on the board, was another green note. I grabbed it and read out his rascally quote. "Fo fiddly fee, you can't catch me, for I'm as clever can be. This musical mess is just the first one. It's rollicking, frolicking leprechaun fun. Let's tidy this room and then plan what to do before he comes back and makes mess number 2. After our lunchtime, we'll work on a trap. Someone must capture that small, cheeky chap." I slipped from the lunch line and went for a stroll to prowl all the hallways on prankster patrol. "I'll search through the school as fast as I can. I can catch him. I'm the gingerbread man." I spotted more shamrocks, then heard a new noise. I pushed on a door with a sign that said, "Boys." The place was a mess. Then I yelled with a blush, "Where are your manners? Remember to flush. I glanced in the mirror, then spied his green note. I quickly retrieved it and read what he wrote. Foo fiddly fee, you can't catch me, for I'm as sneaky can be. I placed all the books in my favorite shape and planned a few hijinks before my escape. He's loose in the library, this is not good. He won't treat the books in the way that he should. I'm on the case, I said as I ran. I can catch him, I'm the gingerbread man. The books were all stacked in a rainbow display. They teetered and tottered and started to sway. Down they all came in an avalanche slide. They toppled so fast I had no time to hide. Then under the pile, I was startled to find something important that he'd left behind. Beside his green note was a little lost hat. I'm betting that he must be looking for that. I sprang from the books and I grabbed his hat too. Then I opened the message to read his next clue. Foo fiddly fee, you can't catch me, for I'm as tricky can be. The lunchroom? A classroom? Which place should I go? Or how about a house made from gingerbread dough? My classroom? My house? I must get there first. I sped down the hall in a super fast burst. I'm on a mission, I've got a good plan. I can catch him, I'm the gingerbread man. I reached our door quickly, no sign of the elf. So I gathered supplies from a low closet shelf. I grabbed all the pencils, a ruler and glue, then found toilet tissue and pulled it down too. I set up my trap and I heard a small giggle. I peered at our door and I saw the knob jiggle. Foo fiddly fee, hi! Is that my magical hat that I see? With a glint in his eye, he skipped through the door, not noticing glue that was spread on the floor. Slipping and sliding, his arms whirled around as he log rolled on pencils laid out on the ground. He landed on top of a measuring stick. The ruler popped up and it gave him a flick. He slid down a mountain of soft tissue rolls, but his shoes were so sticky it stuck to his soles. Flipping and flopping, he spun round and round. Then, wrapped like a mummy, he rolled to the ground. The trap did the trick, I pulled off my plan. Hello, leprechaun, I'm the gingerbread man. Foo fiddly fee, oh my, oh me, this is a bind that I didn't foresee. I'm happy to help you, but first, you must say you'll fix up the messes you've left here today. Okay, little cookie, so crafty and keen, just hand me my hat and I promise to clean. That's quite a good trick, but I'm still smarter than that. You must do it first, then I'll give you your hat. Oh, you're pretty clever as me, he winked and then said. May your school be mess-free. With a pop and a crackle of shimmering green, the mess disappeared and the classroom was clean. So I pulled on the tissue and spun him around. Then he sprang to his hat with a leap and a bound. He sang out, I'm free, as my classmates came in. Then he did a quick jig with a wave and a grin. It's time to be going. My mischief is done. I'll be visiting next March with more leprechaun fun. I'm up for the challenge. We'll have a new plan. Bring it on, leprechaun. I'm the gingerbread man. The end. Thank you for joining me today and celebrating St. Patrick's Day. I hope that you had a lot of fun.